There are people who walk out of your life as if they never needed you. But don't be fooled by that coldness. It's not a sign of strength. It's the final mask hiding the one truth they fear more than anything else, that you are the only one who could truly make them fall apart. A narcissist doesn't leave because they're strong. They leave because they're terrified. You've seen too much afraid. You'll notice that behind their pride and so-called independence lies a soul hollowed out by despair, a thirst for love they can't even name. And to survive, they must do this. Pretend they don't need you, while secretly depending on every breath of emotion you give. They manipulate not to love, but to control. They go silent not to reflect, but to make you imprison yourself in guilt. In today's video, we'll expose the truth behind that mask, not to seek revenge, but to help you reclaim what they tried to take from you, your worth. You know, a narcissist is never as independent as they want you to believe. What they truly cannot bear is not your absence itself, but the meaning of that absence. Because when you disappear, no longer reacting, no longer hurting, no longer dependent, they are forced to face the one thing they fear the most, themselves. They don't possess a stable sense of self. Their ego is like a cracked mirror. It only reflects an image when someone else's light shines upon it. And that light, all this time, was you. When you were happy, they fed on your joy. When you were sad, they drank from your pain to feel powerful. They manipulate not because they hate you, but because they have no other way to survive. They cannot love themselves, so they need you to do it for them. They cannot define their own worth, so they need you to confirm it with your trust, your forgiveness, your endless returns when you should have walked away. And then they turn their back, not because they don't need you, but because they fear you've finally seen them. They're afraid you've realized the truth, that the one who leaves with arrogance is in fact the one most dependent. They need you in the most twisted, distorted way. They'll never admit it, but every cold glance, every deliberate silence, every cutting remark carries the same hidden message: I need your reaction, so I can exist. The irony is, the more terrified they are of being exposed, the harder they try to appear strong. They put on the armor of success, charm, logic, control. They act as if they're better off, wiser, beyond you. But all of it is camouflage, a desperate disguise for one truth. You are the emotional center they can't detach from. They ignore you, yet secretly watch every story you post. They act indifferent, yet your words echo in their minds like the voice of a truth they dare not face. They tell others you were too sensitive, too emotional, too much. But deep down they know the truth. You were the strong one, because you dared to love, to give, to face yourself while they only knew how to hide. A narcissist doesn't love you in the way you understand love. They don't love to share life with you. They love to fill a void, to control, to validate their distorted sense of worth through someone else's pain. When you cry, they feel powerful. When you apologize, they feel desirable. When you stay despite all the hurt, they feel victorious. But what is that victory? Nothing more than an illusion. A fake win in a game they themselves don't understand. They need you like a bulb needs electricity. But they don't know how to protect that current. They burn it. They drain it. They consume it until there's nothing left to take. And when you awaken, when you quietly withdraw without anger or justification, that's when panic begins. They don't understand what's happening. For years, they believed they held the reins. They were used to your reactions, your explanations, your soft heart. But now, your silence is the storm they can't control. Not all silence is the same. Some comes from pain, some from helplessness. But there's one kind of silence that terrifies the narcissist, the silence of freedom. The silence of someone who has seen through everything and has nothing left to prove. Of someone who no longer needs to win against them, but only needs to heal themselves. You don't have to scream that you deserve love. You don't have to list the wounds they caused. Because you already know, those who are capable of love don't need convincing, and those who wish to understand will hear even what's left unsaid. They don't comprehend where this calm awareness comes from, because they've never faced themselves. But you, after everything, have learned one sacred truth. Not everyone who needs you deserves to have you. And this is what terrifies them most, when you recognize your true worth. Because once you do, they can no longer manipulate you. They can't use sweet words to keep you. They can't use cold wars to make you surrender. They lose all power the moment you stop giving it to them. The truth is they were never in control. They only appeared powerful while you believed they were. They only stood taller when you were still bowing down. But when you rise not for revenge, but to embrace yourself, they lose their compass. They look for you in others, but no one mirrors them as clearly as you once did, because you were never just supply. You were the mirror. And now that the mirror has shattered, they're left alone, exposed, hollow, with no one left to blame. So don't be surprised when they come back. It's not because they love you more. It's because they don't know how to live without you. They return because they crave your energy once again. They send vague messages, half-hearted apologies, nostalgic memories, all to see if you'll still be their landing place. But now, you're different. You no longer seek validation from them to feel whole. You no longer crave an apology you know will never be sincere. You understand that real love doesn't need persuasion and never requires suffering. You've learned to stand alone not because you don't need anyone, but because you've learned to be with yourself without feeling empty. And that, right there, is something a narcissist will never achieve. They live inside a performance, but you've stepped off the stage. They need you to define them, but you've learned to write your story without an audience. And you know what? When you're silent, not reacting, not trying to change them, you're not weak. You're reclaiming your sovereignty. Every step you withdraw is a step they lose power. And in that quiet, their entire theater begins to crumble. They'll call you heartless. They'll say you've changed, but no, you haven't changed. You've simply returned to your original state, strong and free. So from now on, if you ever wonder, do they really not need me? Remember this: those who don't need you don't try to control you. Those who don't need you don't manipulate your emotions to make you stay. Those who don't need you leave in true silence, not the kind designed to make you chase them. And if they still hover, still watch, still show up indirectly through others, it's not because they don't need you. It's because they can't live without you, but lack the courage to love you the right way. You may have thought they walked away because they stopped loving you, but the deeper truth is they never knew what love was. To them, love was never the meeting of two souls. It was a tool to maintain control. When you loved, they used. When you trusted, they possessed. When you suffered, they felt powerful. Because to them, your emotions were never something to empathize with, they were something to use. They don't understand that real love isn't a game of power. Love isn't about who needs whom more, but for them it is. In their world, if you love more, you're weak. If you forgive, you're foolish. If you stay, you're controlled. Because they never understood love, they also never knew how to keep it. They lost you not because you weren't enough, but because they were never emotionally mature enough to receive a love as deep and genuine as the one you gave. Have you ever asked yourself, if they needed me so much, why were they so cruel? Why so indifferent, so silent, acting as if I never existed? The answer isn't in you, it's in their distorted defense mechanisms. They fear dependence, yet they cannot live without emotional supply. They fear pain, so they inflict it first. They fear abandonment, so they abandon as a preemptive strike. What you saw as coldness was never strength. It was armor built to protect a heart terrified of being hurt. In psychology, this is called emotional dissociation. When someone can't process pain, they shut off their feelings altogether. But unlike emotionally mature individuals, narcissists don't just cut off emotions, they twist them. They distort every experience, every relationship, every memory to serve the fragile ego that's always under threat. You may call them heartless, but the truth is they feel too much. So much that they can't bear it. And they build walls of numbness to survive. And when you quietly step out of that game, they no longer have an audience. No one left to project onto. No one left to blame. No one left to use as a mirror that distorts the truth. Your withdrawal forces them to face themselves, and that's something they can't endure. Because without you, they no longer know who they are. Maybe you never realized how important you were, because all this time they made you feel like an extra piece, always wrong, too emotional, too demanding. But that was just the illusion they created. The truth is, you were the energy source keeping their perfect mask intact. When you shared joy, they dismissed it. But when you were in pain, they paid close attention, because your pain nourished their starving ego. When you suffered, you became easier to manipulate. When you feared losing them, you became easier to control. And when you tried to save the relationship, you became the perfect puppet in their psychological play. They made you believe you needed them to survive. But in reality, they were the ones who couldn't function without you regulating their emotions. They don't know how to create happiness. They don't know how to heal themselves. They don't know how to love without possessing. So when you withdraw your energy, they collapse no matter how strong they pretend to be on the outside. Then you'll see the pattern repeat. A sudden apology, a casual text, a coincidental encounter. They don't return because they love you. They return because you are a source of energy they can't find elsewhere. But this time, you're different. You're no longer giving. Not because you're empty, but because you've learned to give love to yourself first. And what leaves them powerless now is that you no longer need their validation to feel worthy. Their silence doesn't hurt anymore. Their indifference doesn't shake you. Their absence no longer feels like loss. Because now you know. What you lost was never real love, only the illusion of love you once longed for so deeply that you mistook it for the real thing. A narcissist doesn't know how to love because they've never learned to love themselves, and that's why they can't love anyone else. The best thing you can do isn't to teach them love, but to love yourself enough not to need theirs anymore. Don't try to make them understand they don't want to. The truth would hurt too much. Don't wait for their apology. They don't apologize to change, but to reopen the same cycle. Don't try to convince them you're worthy. They already know. And it's because they know that they worked so hard to make sure you never realized it. Your freedom is their greatest defeat. Because when you walk away without looking back, you're doing something they never could, letting go of a toxic bond to choose inner peace. They won't understand it. They'll call you heartless. But it's their cruelty that taught you to be strong. They once were the center of your world, but today you know you are the center of your own. They once defined who you were, but now you alone hold the pen that writes your story. That's not just change, that's an inner revolution. In the end, the only thing you must remember is this. You were never weak, you just loved deeply. But from now on, you love with awareness and self-respect, not blind sacrifice. Because those who truly need you will never make you question your worth. There's a profound paradox you'll notice as you heal from the narcissist's spell. The less you need them, the more desperate they become to control you. Not because they want you, but because they can't stand losing dominance. In their chaotic inner world, controlling your emotions is the only proof they exist. Every text you reply to, every argument you engage in, every tear you shed, all of it feeds their fractured ego. But when you stop responding, when you become calm, steady, unshaken, that silence isn't weakness. It's the strongest rebellion they'll ever face. You're withdrawing the only thing keeping their ego intact, your presence. You're not giving up, you're letting go after giving every chance, every kindness, every hope. And what they'll never grasp is that those who truly love also know when to stop, so they don't destroy themselves in the process. In the narcissist's mind, they are always the center. Everything must revolve around them. Your feelings, your dreams, your boundaries, none of it matters more than their need for validation. To them, love means taking, not giving. Care means control, not respect. Your kindness becomes weakness to exploit. And when you start setting boundaries, they see it not as self-protection, but as betrayal. Some people ask, why can't they change if they know they're hurting others? The truth is, they do know. But change would require them to do something terrifying, turn inward and face the emptiness within. They'd rather destroy others than confront that void. They'd rather make you bleed than feel their own pain. They'd rather lose the one who loved them than surrender the illusion of power, even if it makes them weaker than ever. Don't mistake their indifference for lack of care. It's a strategy, a desperate attempt to confuse you. They use coldness as a weapon, knowing it will make you doubt yourself, question your worth, and try harder for a scrap of validation. But you don't have to chase anymore, because the truth is you were always enough. They just weren't deep enough to see it. When you love a narcissist, you don't just love a person, you love the illusion they create. You fall for the charming, thoughtful, attentive version of them that appeared at the beginning. But that image doesn't last. It was only a performance, and when you cling to that role, you forget one truth. Real love doesn't need a mask. It's raw, honest, and accountable. In the end, a narcissist doesn't leave because they're bored of you. They leave or make you leave to ensure you never stay long enough to see their true self. They fear you staying long enough to realize that beneath all the control, judgment, and disconnection lies a soul that has no idea what love really is. And when you start to question, when the light of awakening begins to flicker within you, they push you away, deny, attack, or act as if you never existed. That isn't indifference, it's a retreat born of terror at being exposed. They destroy the bond the moment they sense you're close to uncovering their greatest secret, their total dependence on others to feel valuable. Then they move on to someone new, not because the new person is better than you, not because they make them happier, but because they cannot stand the emptiness of not having someone to reflect back a worthy image. Yet no one can play that role forever. Eventually, the new person will see the cracks. The same story will repeat because the narcissist pattern never changes unless they choose to heal, which almost never happens. Meanwhile, you, even with your scars, are slowly walking into the light. You are not a victim, you are a survivor. And not just surviving, you're learning to be reborn, with a heart that's stronger, wiser, and still capable of love. You may have once believed you'd never get through it, that without them you'd fall apart. But now, every passing day is proof that you have, that you are, and that you will continue to stand tall without anyone needing to save you. Because the greatest salvation doesn't come from another person, it comes from the moment you look in the mirror and say, I deserve a healthy love. And I won't stop until I find it within myself first. The narcissist needed you in a way no one ever should. Not to share life, but to survive. Not to love, but to cling. Not to build, but to control. But you're no longer there. You've stepped out of the role of the savior in someone else's story of self-destruction. You are now the light for yourself, the one who lights the lamp when no one else is around, the one who holds yourself when no one else will. And that isn't loneliness, it's emotional freedom in its purest form. You no longer need to be understood to feel worthy. You no longer need to be right to feel enough. You only need to be a human healing, one breath, one act of compassion at a time. When you reach that state, nothing can pull you back into the old abyss. No cold stare, no vague message, no manipulation can shake your ground, because you're not playing on their field anymore. You've built a new world, one where you don't have to win against anyone, because you've already won within yourself. And if there's one thing you should thank the narcissist for, it's this. Through them, you discovered that you are far stronger than you ever believed. That your heart, even broken, still knows how to love. That you no longer need anyone to validate your worth because you've learned how to live fully within your own being. They will keep performing. They will find someone else. They will repeat the same cycle. But you will not. You will move on. You will choose differently. And in the powerful silence you leave behind, you will give them something they will never possess, the truth. In the end, you don't need to defeat the narcissist. Because true victory isn't making them regret losing you, it's realizing you no longer need to prove anything at all. You walk away from that relationship, not carrying resentment, but carrying wisdom, not hatred, but awareness. You stop waiting for an apology from someone who doesn't understand responsibility, and you close the door on pain with kindness toward yourself. They once thought you couldn't live without them. They believed you'd come back, just like before. But this time, it's not coldness, it's awakening. You haven't turned your back on love, you've turned your back on manipulation. You didn't walk away because you were weak. You walked away because you finally became strong enough to choose yourself first. You're not someone who forgets easily. You're someone who remembers deeply, but not to hold grudges, only to ensure you never fall into that same pain again. You no longer seek answers from them because you found them within yourself. You know that no matter where they go, who they're with, or what they say about you, you still deserve love that is whole, healthy, and kind. They may have been a major chapter in your life, but they were never your ending. You are now writing the rest of your story, and no one else holds the pen. The most beautiful part is you no longer need a perfect ending to know you're on the right path. As long as every step you take no longer crushes your self-respect, that's enough. They may stay trapped in their endless loop, but you won't. You're stepping into a new chapter, one of freedom, awareness, and emotional maturity. They don't need to see your transformation because you no longer live to prove anything to them. You live for yourself, for peace, for the relationships that are truly worth keeping. And if today you still feel pain, know this: it's the final pain of rebirth. The pain is teaching you something. One day you'll look back and smile, not because they changed, but because you did. So keep walking. Don't look back. Don't doubt. Because the path you're on is not leading you back to them, it's leading you home to yourself.